Hey everybody, welcome to the Hot Buttery Rolls Whiskey Show. Tonight, it is June 14th, 2020. It is International Bourbon Day, so I thought we would take a chance to get ourselves acquainted with the legendary father of bourbon, Elijah Craig. Elijah Craig was a Baptist preacher who made bourbon with his spare time and shipped it off down the Mississippi River, and through some magic of fate or providence, he had a barn fire that spread to his barrels, and the barrels were burned, but being a frugal man, he hated to see them thrown away or destroyed without seeing any use, so he went ahead and used them anyway. He filled those burned barrels, charred barrels, with his whiskey and sent them on down to New Orleans. Well, when they got there, that was great for it. Doing terrific. When they got there, they caused a huge fuss because they were unlike anything that those guys had ever had before. Delicious, rich, caramelized sugar flavors that were not previously found in a raw oak barrel. So tonight we're gonna look into these and give you a few tasting notes and talk about bourbon. To start off with, I'm starting with just your standard offering 94 proof Elijah Craig bourbon. This is available at just about every liquor store that I've been to. It's a standard and it's relatively inexpensive, anywhere between $25 to $29 at $7.50. Not exactly a bottom shelfer, but definitely within a lot of people's budgets, so easy to find and easy to buy. It is also a sweet bourbon, even though it has a rye mash bill. The tasting notes on it, to me, are usually involve some sugary sweetness, which this one does. I've got some brown sugar coming across on this one, some caramel and vanilla. Just a little bit of rye spice, not very much, and just a touch of oak on the nose. Let's go to the palate. Cheers. On the palate, it's just easy drinking. Very, very smooth, almost no alcohol bite. Smooth is not a very good adjective for bourbon enthusiasts. I get busted on a lot for using that adjective, but it's smooth, it's easy to drink. When I say smooth, I mean that it doesn't have any sharp edges, it doesn't have any roughness to it, it's not going to turn you off. Lightly oaky. I will say that this is a non-age stated bourbon, which just means that they don't tell you how old it is. The bourbon inside is at least 4 years old, but it is probably, well, actually, I can't even tell you that it's at least 4 years old. I can tell you, because it is straight bourbon, that it's at least 2 years old, but this is widely believed to be somewhere around 7 to 9 years old. But I will tell you that Heaven Hill gets every bit of the work out of those barrels. There is a delicious oaky finish to it that actually lasts quite a bit longer than what a 94 proof bourbon usually does. Going back to the nose, I'm getting just a little bit of that Heaven Hill nuttiness. A couple of different distilleries come up with a nut flavor to me. One of those being Heaven Hill, another being the Jim Beam Distillery, and another one being the Wild Turkey Distillery. The difference to me between Heaven Hill and those other two is that this one comes across as kind of a raw nut flavor, like an uncooked or unroasted peanut. It's definitely there. Still vanilla and sugar. I encourage you to go back and re-smell your whiskey after you've tasted it. A lot of people knows it before the first drink and then not again, but I find that the character of a whiskey opens up over time. Another thing to look at when you swirl it is to check the sides of the glass and look. Those are called the legs. The longer that those things stay up on the side of the glass, the higher proof that this whiskey is going to have. You'll see here in a minute when we go to the barrel proof that the legs on that one will stick and just almost look like they're etched into the glass. Let's go back again. Very sweet. Like a birthday cake batter sweetness. A little bit of rye spice. To me, a lot of times rye comes across as a feeling versus a flavor. Whenever you get more of an opening, almost like a mentholated feeling, like a Vicks Vapor Rub will give you a feeling. I don't even know if I'm allowed to say that brand name, but I'm not monetized yet, so it doesn't matter. But that feeling in your chest whenever you have that mentholated essence, that's kind of how I describe a rye spice. Like a minty breath of cool wind. This has that. It's just dang good. Nothing wrong with it. Upward and onward. This is Elijah Craig Barrel Proof. This is an age-stated bourbon. I don't know if you can see on the side of the label, but it says right there 12 years. 12 years in the oak. This one is the C918, which means it was the third batch barreled or bottled in September of 2018. So C being the third batching, 9 being September, and 18 being 2018. This one comes in at 131.4 proof, 65.7 alcohol by volume, and that's not the highest I've seen, but it's definitely not the lowest either. This is a really good batch. These batches can vary from bottling to bottling, and this is a really good one. So again, as I mentioned, whenever you spin these, you can look for the legs, and while the others were a little more sloppy in the 94 proof, this one just looks like it's etched into the glass. Let's go to the nose. Sweet, dusty, caramelized sugar, almost like a burnt sugar. Slight citrus notes, like a blood orange, and cherry, a sweet cherry. And then across it all, that oak flavor. So this one is non-age stated. This one is at least 12 years old, which is a pretty good age for a bourbon. My sweet spot in bourbons is anywhere between 12 and 15 years. So this is a really good one. Just all that oak goodness. Go to the palate. Cheers. Dusty sugar, cherry vanilla, oak, sweet cake batter, and then this one's got a little bit of a cinnamon to the finish. There is also, with that increased age, an increased tannic response, and all the tannins are is they're portions of the wood that interact with the whiskey, and it can give you a drying, cloying effect in your mouth. This one isn't overly tannic, but if you feel like it's taking some of the moisture from the sides of your tongue and putting them up on top of your tongue, that's what I would describe as a tannic response. Not too bad, but it definitely has that response. Going back to the nose, there's no young nuttiness in this at all. This is just cherries, dusty sugar, and oak. Delicious sweet oak. It's really good. Really, really good. A note, when you're drinking barrel strength bourbon, it's important to pace yourself not only in your consumption of the bottle, but in your consumption of the glass. When I take a sip of barrel strength bourbon, I let the first taste of the bourbon touch the tip of my tongue as if it were a brand new cup of coffee from a large coffee chain. We'll call it Bar Stucks. So if you've got a brand new cup of coffee from Bar Stucks, you're not gonna just go in there and rip the lid off and splash it across your face, causing yourself terrible pain and anguish. And in the same way, I recommend you not do that with barrel strength bourbon. I feel like a lot of the people that try barrel strength bourbons that come to my bar are suddenly struck by the fact that this is a very, very high proof liquid, and if you treat it as if it were a lower proof whiskey, you will not enjoy the experience. But if you respect the whiskey, you will be rewarded. There's almost just a little bit of rose petal on the nose. That's one thing, again, go back to the nose on these. After you've sipped on it, go back to the nose, let it come back to you. It will change as the alcohol evaporates from the glass. You get different notes that come through. Don't shortchange a whiskey. That is just fantastic, guys. And finally, this in the Drowning Pheasant glass from the Bourbon Junkies is Elijah Craig 18. And the reason I put it in a Drowning Pheasant glass is because I watched a man nearly drown trying to bottle chug this on a video. He was brave and stupid, more stupid than brave, but stupid brave. And he poured this towards his face and it splashed across the face, up his nose, and nearly took his life. Memes were made. So when this bourbon came out, this was the oldest bourbon that had ever been bottled. Elijah Craig 18 was the first of the ultra-aged bourbons. So when it first came out from the old Heaven Hill distillery, the pre-fire distillery, they started bottling it. This one was bottled in 2018, which means it went into the barrels before I was old enough to drink alcohol. This one comes in at a nice and easy to drink 90 proof, 45% alcohol by volume. And I love this whiskey. It's a little bit polarizing. As I mentioned before, Heaven Hill has a very, very oaky note to their whiskeys. This is about as oaky as it gets, ladies and gentlemen. If you look at the spin, it just dribbles right down, similar to what the original Elijah Craig small batch does. Look at the detail on that beautiful etched pheasant. Thanks, Dan and Sean. On the nose, you get all of the sweet cherry and dusty sugar that you got on the barrel proof, but without any of the burn. On the back of it, you're going to get a deep cherry, where this one was a bright cherry. This is more of an older, more ripe cherry, almost overripe cherry. And then a sugary sweetness. No dough notes on this one, or batter notes. There's no breadiness to it at all. And I say breadiness, I find a note in whiskey that I feel like I can't really describe very well, other than just a bread dough dense graininess. And I find it in a lot of young whiskeys especially, but you know, even in some of the ones that are well aged, I still get a note across my mid palate that I can only describe as bread dough. This one on the nose doesn't have it at all. Cheers. This one is sweet. It is very sweet, very rich. Cherries, vanilla, brown sugar, a little bit more of a sweet sugar though. Not as much of a caramelized sugar, not a burned sugar, a confectioner sugar. It's dang tasty, guys. Perfumey. Man, it's good whiskey. Very, very little astringency. Doesn't dry the palate out very much. Super tasty, very sweet, dark cherries. I got a really good barrel here in this bottle. Some people will complain that the Elijah Craig 18 is over oaked, like chewing on wet wood, some people describe it as. I've had some bourbons that tasted that way to me. This one does not. This is just pure, sweet, oaky depth. There's so much richness in this bottle. Dang tasty. Well, before I lose everyone with my love affair for Elijah Craig 18, I just want to thank you for coming out for my first video. Appreciate you watching. If you've made it this far, please click the like button and press subscribe. Plan to put out as much content as my schedule allows. I've been down with the quarantine, as many people have. If you're watching this in 2023 and have already forgotten what that means, there was a time in 2020 where everybody had to stay home for a lot. So, you know, if things continue on as they have, we'll keep these videos cranking out. Please let me know what you'd like to see. If there's a kind of whiskey that you'd like to see me review, I'd love to review it for you. Hope that you've enjoyed this with Elijah Craig. This is my first video, so take it easy on me. Thank you for supporting Hot Buttery Rolls. We'll see you guys soon.